The truth is always going to come to light, Anna. Whenever anybody is doing all this, all the lies and immorality that they're out there spewing, there's just everybody just, if you sit back long enough, it's always going to come bubbling up back up to the surface. You cannot escape the truth.
So notice nothing is incorporated. Everything is unincorporated. We know that if it's incorporated, it's not sovereign.
May I?
And so we just have to present this information and this knowledge to the General Assembly and just say, hey, we think this would be really good. We come up with the plans and we present it and they say that they want to do it or they don't want to do it. We explain why, because anybody on our pillar should have business experience, and Dominic, by the way, I've been thinking a lot about this because we were talking about what type of people we want on the committee and the prerequisites for people to be on the committee. And I feel, and I'm presenting this to you guys and y'all can just tell me if you think it's a good idea or not or whatever. But I think that, we should only have people who are on this committee who have children, who have successful marriages, because you have to have this certain amount of experience to be able to make, I think, the best fiduciary decisions. So this is my opinion. So everybody gets to have their opinion. But I feel like in line with God's law, you should have a successful marriage, have children, and have X amount of experience, business experience, because otherwise you're not really qualified for this position. So what do you guys think? I yield. Y'all are the committee. They're not on the committee really exactly. So they're waiting for you to talk. And then they're going to guide us. So Dominic is here to guide and Cynthia is here as the marshal at arms.
Oh, that's what I was saying. I thought you asked Dominic directly.
Yeah. Oh, I did, didn't I? I kind of messed that up. All right. So okay. Well, he and we were talking about all this before we put the committee together, which I handpicked you guys. So
we're drafted.
Yeah. And so, we can seek, this isn't a committee where I feel like I want to really promote everybody just coming in. I think we should be interviewing.
I don't know if all that matters as much as just selecting people that we think would be helpful to the committee.
I disagree vehemently. I vehemently disagree. People who are not parents, people who aren't successful in their marriages, there's a lot of qualities about those people that would make them better fiduciaries. So we do not operate in lies and immorality at all. We have zero tolerance for lies and immorality.
Okay, now this might be coming from growing up in the incorporated world, because how about kind of like with the thought process of having those requirements early in the formation of the committee, but maybe eventually, I don't want to use the word relaxing. I'm only thinking because oftentimes there may be that one individual, and they may not have had a family yet, may not have
they just won't qualify though, Solomon. That's the point. The point is your prerequisite is that you have to have raised a family and have been married for, I don't know, 20 years. So because if you're not 20 years married or something, I mean, I don't know. And I say 20, but like, how long were you and Felicia married?
30.
Well, 20's easy then. See, we've been married, what, 22? 21. Yeah. Dominic, Cynthia?
45.
I got you beat. 47.
See, now it's contest. Contest.
All right, I get you.
Yeah. So we refuse to lower our standards. We will not lower our standards.
Okay, that's why I say it might just be the
That is a
consequence
corporate. That
of
is
growing up in the corporate world.
right. Well, because you in a corporate mindset, then you don't have enough. And the other thing about this particular assembly pillar is this pillar, Anna hasn't written any articles about it because it has all the teeth. This assembly pillar is going to make or break our state, our nation state. Do you want it to be in the hands of babes who have no experience?
Okay, all right.
So the only thing that, if I may,
Yes.
the only thing that I would take into consideration, when you think about our forefathers during that period of time, most of them ranged anywhere from being in their 20s to their 30s. So therefore, and many of them were not married with families. So if we're reconstructing our government the way it was back then, is that a fair requirement to put upon the people that maybe do have the skill sets to be able to fit in to many of the areas that once this particular pillar is stood up, where we need their skill sets, we put ourselves into a box if they've never been married or not married for a certain period of time. Some couples never are able to have children. So I would just throw out there to think about that before it becomes a definite piece. To my knowledge, with the very limited reading or articles that are out there, articles that are out there, the only real requirement is that the individual, the men and women, have to be state citizens. That's the only requirement that I actually know of.
I'm going to be vehemently for standards because we don't have any.
And it's important that every single one of us give our viewpoints and thoughts, even if it's contrary to whether it's Neethi, myself, Cynthia. It's important that in these committees we discuss both sides of the coin. We got to be careful that we just sit there and accept everything. So that's just a point that I want to make. It's important in these committees we have open dialogue. I just want to go back for a second to give you an example of why I think maybe we should just think twice about having such rigorous requirements. All in favor of standards. We operate in truth, natural law, 100% agree. But I'll give you an example of why maybe we want to be careful with age and marriage and things of that nature, because the world is changing out there. Technology, for example. I get stuck with technology. I leverage Covey for technology guidance and advice because he is so spot on and ahead of the game. And so as the world changes, there's going to be things that we are going to require, and it could be an important asset to a committee to have somebody younger that has additional experience. So again, I just want to make that point, but the most important point I wanted to make was make sure that each of us on the committee are sharing our thoughts in a respectful way, whether we agree with, the others on the committee or not. It's important that your thoughts, your experiences, your ideas are heard on the committee. I yield.
May I? I think it has to do more with the values that we choose versus the actual specific criteria of this many years and that many children or whatever it may be. I think it has to do more with the interview process and the values that we choose to promote versus a specific time frame or a date, or you've had to have kids, or you have to be married for 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, whatever it is. It doesn't need to be that specific. I think it needs to be more about the values. I yield.
I don't think that people who haven't had a lot of this life experience, and people who are, 40, 50 and never been married or whatever, you don't know if you don't have any, there's no way to know what their values are because they haven't really, well, I haven't met anyone in my experience who is operating in that way, who aligns with my value system at all. Have you? They don't have any respect, is what I have to say, for the people who are in those situations. But I'm just sharing my experience. I want to know yours. Have you ever met anyone that fits that bill that shares your values? Even a little bit. I mean, because if they do a little bit, even, that's fine. You're the one making this argument right now. Do you know someone who fits your value system that matches what you described?
You talking to me or Dominic?
Well, I was talking to my husband who brought it up.
Oh, well,
I mean,
excuse
because
me. I yield.
No, but I am asking everyone, Dominic, Cynthia, do you, either one of you, know someone who doesn't match the criteria that I outlined that I feel should be the requirement, who even remotely meets your value system?
I have a girl that works.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have a girl that worked for me that was married for 7 years and divorced, never remarried, ended up with breast cancer, and she ended up being the manager of my business and would trust her with my life or anything. So yeah, there is that one that's never had a child, that wasn't married, that has everything that's necessary, but it's a rare bird. I yield.
Mm-hmm.
So may I?
Yes.
Yes, I can say over the years in business and in personal relations with friends and that, where they did not have the criteria that you mentioned, where again, I could trust them with everything. And I knew that they would honor whatever agreement we had. So the answer is yes. I do know people over my many years of being in business. They're there. They're there. Hey, the nice thing also, as we present this, if we can't, come to an agreement or we want to put it in that way, I would imagine that Anna's definitely going to square us away in that area. So I yield.
You said that you've met them over the years. Do you feel that it is possible for us to recognize that aspect in those people, fresh off the street? Like, the reason that I think this is a qualification standard is because there needs to be some kind of resume. Like Cynthia even said, it's a rare bird. So that requires us to have had some experience with them over time. And so, maybe we could make a situation where we say, well, we've known this person for 5 or 7 or more years in the assembly, and they can be vouched for by someone who meets the criteria who's in there. So sure, it could be somebody who doesn't 100% meet these qualifications, that one of our people who is on the International Business Assembly wants to vouch for, that they've known for 7 or more years, because we're building this from scratch right now. Solomon and I and Rohit have known each other now for over a decade, for sure, over a decade.
Minimum of 10.
Yeah, minimum of 10 years. So if any of the three of us were, or you guys, if any of us out of our experience, if there's someone on the North Carolina Assembly who you brought in because the Assembly's new and you've known them for 7 or more years and they don't meet this criteria, but you want to vouch for them that they do meet this value standard, then I think that would be the only way in which we would consider someone outside of the scope. Because like if Cynthia had her old manager lady and that lady wanted to, and you know, Cynthia's saying she would have trusted her with her life and her children and her business. Okay. We know people like that, I guess. I mean, I don't know anybody who I know like that doesn't meet this other criteria, but, and I mean, Dominic, I haven't lived as long as you either. So we definitely also haven't been married as long as any of the three of you guys. Okay. So we're the babies in the committee. So, you know, considering all of that is what I'm saying fair.
So may I?
I yield. Yes.
Yeah, so this is the reality of dealing with people. And been in management director, VP role from the time I was 22 up until I retired, and even dealing with what we deal with in the assembly today. You can never vouch for a person because people change. There's things that will happen in their lives unexpectedly that will take somebody that we know for a long period of time, and all of a sudden they turn on a dime and you say, what in the world happened? So you always have to be on guard for any and everything that you're dealing with. So you know, keep that in mind as well. Again, what's not setting with me is we've gone through and have heard many arguments about letting people into assemblies versus keeping people out. And Anna's words are continuously, nobody should be held back from participating in their government. And the only thing that I've seen in reading about this particular pillar is that the individual has to be a citizen. They have to be somebody who is totally 100% loyal to North Carolina. They can't have any other outside things that could interfere and compromise them. So if we start putting requirements on individuals that truly want to participate in this part of our government, are these restrictions that we would be recommending violating what we already know and what we've even argued for? Question that we have to dig deep to ourselves. Again, I understand where you're coming from, but just looking at the total picture, I again would say, what are their skill sets? What value do they bring? Because there's so many different areas. You just touched on a couple of them. You didn't even scratch the surface. That we're going to need expertise, if for no other reason, guidance on issues that we don't know. I know a lot, but I don't know that much either when it comes to all the things that we would be guiding our subcontractors or demanding what we want from our subcontractors. So again, I just leave that for thought. for the committee, because it's you guys that are going to make these decisions. I'm just kind of the coach or the person that throws things in there for you to think of. I don't have a voice, or I have a voice, but I don't have a vote in this game. So with that,
You do have a vote, but okay. So people who meet these criteria would also possibly go rogue. Any of us can go rogue at any time. So let's just start with that. And I'm glad you're pushing us into corners with this, but I'm still going to be a hard sell, because I'm going to say we can't manage unanimous votes without people who have the same value system. We have to establish if North Carolina has any values or a value system. And putting them on paper isn't what's going to be creating those values, okay? You have to be about it. You can't just talk about it, okay? And also, this is not the General Assembly. So let us not be confused about that at all. And if we're establishing a pillar that would house the Congress, then we have to have a higher standard, because you're making decisions for the population. Or, you can hear the people to some degree, but we already know for a fact that, everybody on the ground, all the boots on the ground, A, don't even come to meetings. B, they don't have any obligation to do that. So, someone has to be managing and making decisions for the greater good of the people. And we already know that most people want somebody to do it. They're looking for someone else to do all of that. Everybody's not interested in doing all of that. So there's all of these things. And I think this is the one pillar where they have to have more qualifications than any other pillar. Even Anna hasn't written articles about it on purpose. But we also have to be courageous and brave, and also a little bit hard-headed enough to stand up for what is the truth and what is right. And we're going to be pushed into every single corner, and we have to be able to defend that position. So I'm still not going to bend on that. And I don't have all the votes. So, and we have to be unanimous. And so I don't know. Maybe nobody wants me on this pillar either, but am I wrong about, I want you to tell me that I'm wrong, because I am open to hear everything. And I'm saying that I'm not bending because I haven't heard anything yet that makes me believe that I should change my mind. That doesn't mean that, please do not misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm not willing to work with everybody. What I'm saying is I have not heard anything yet that makes me feel that we should change what I said already in the beginning. I yield.
Yeah, and I don't think I have anything in my head right now. I'm just kind of listening to both sides. I understand why you're so. I think I have a firm understanding as to why you're so committed to your beliefs. Are we gonna be going on this today, or?
No, we're talking. This is our very first meeting.
That's what I thought. All right.
We're discussing this. I don't know how long it's going to take for us to get something together that we're going to be comfortable presenting to Anna. We're not going to hand her just a mini old thing.
Okay.
And I'm not comfortable doing it by myself and speaking for everybody on North Carolina. Yeah. So that's the reason why I wanted to have at least a minimum amount of somebody on the committee. But there is no rush. But we're not going to be also waiting for forever. And I'm saying that to my husband because I know my husband, and also because, he will be trying to be waiting forever. And so we're not going to be like EPA slow on this. Let's just all be clear. But, we're not going to vote on it. Let's just say we'll vote on it in 3 weeks. We need to meet every week. We need to have discussions. Y'all need to be thinking about it. Yes. You need to be testing it in your own world, in your own community, and tell me that I'm wrong, because I am not the knower of all things. But we do have to be able to stand on and defend whatever it is that we're doing. And we're gonna, I've been on the X for a long time. Y'all, neither one of you have been on the X for a very long time. Cynthia's getting a taste of it, and so is Dominic. So all the corporate experience you have, Dominic, you haven't been on the X with the general population, the mob. And if you have, I don't know about it. So you could just let me know that I don't know what I'm talking about. But being on the X, I have to still stand on what I believe and not doubt myself. And whoever is on this pillar also can't be doubting themselves. We don't need no wishy-washy ding-dongs. You don't see that. Well, I'm trying not to use our current political people as any kind of example because the corporate world is just so wrong. Okay. But we don't have leadership to use as an example. So I don't have anything to show you. We just have to be better than what is available, which right now is what? Nothing. What's around? Right? And anytime, I mean, anybody who I've ever admired as a strong leader is not going to bend the knee to lies and immorality. That's really the big deal. And all the years that both of you have known me, am I ever going to do that? I mean, and I'm going to admit if I did something stupid too. Mm-hmm. And I have made mistakes for sure.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I have definitely made mistakes. I've definitely blown up. I've definitely not handled the situation gracefully. I mean, definitely, for sure, many times. That doesn't mean that I'm compromising integrity. That's a different situation altogether. I mean, I am human, so... Oh, I'm not, actually. Oh, I'm not. I mean, I'm a living woman, so I make mistakes. But including that mistake of being a repeater. See, we're corporate repeaters that we have to stop being. We just have to be better. I think for this pillar, we just have to be better anyway. I yield.
Thank you.
I'm over here in a meeting with two guys, so you know they don't really talk.
Yeah, and I was going to say, maybe we just get a guideline and lay our guideline out a little bit. Even in my position, I'm finding there's a lot of moving parts, and some things are becoming to light that are not exactly as I thought or I planned. So maybe we tentatively soften the words, and we know what the intent and what the thought was behind it, but we can soften the words as to not offend people and or people who subcontractors or people that are going to come with reports trying to sell us electricity, sell us water. We don't want our skies sprayed. We don't want this. We put in this order, that order. Maybe sometimes it's in the wording, so you don't want to shoot the messenger. Maybe soften the message just a tad bit to where we don't have people, no one who wants to work with us, but not lessen the standards, but soften the words, maybe. I yield.
Okay, let me make it clear. Everybody who we're doing business with is not going to be involved in any of these words. These words are for the people in the assembly who are interested in working on this pillar. If they want to be a part of this pillar, then there's a certain standard they're going to have to meet. That information is not going to be something that we're delivering to our electrical subcontractors or whatever the rando state of state people are. The state of state people are just people who we're telling them what we want and why we want it. We don't care about their value system the same way. They're just having to follow our marching orders.
Break up the categories
Thank you.
and what we want to cover.
Yes, but before that, I want all of us to be in unanimous agreement about who we're allowing to join the committee. All I'm saying is that I want to make sure that I think that this pillar is supposed to have a different level of standard just based on my conversations with Anna. Solomon, you said you would like to marinate on what we talked about and absorb and process. So I'll start with you. What do you think? about what we were talking about regarding, I mean, I wanted to just basically at the end of this meeting, I would like for us to be able to try to establish the standard for members for this particular pillar.
I wasn't marinating on it as much as I would have liked, but I did marinate on it some. And all right, I guess my position is such that I understand you're wanting to have these high standards, Miss Neathy. And
the reason that I am stating that is because somebody who's been married for 20 or more years, and I guess I should clarify to the same person. If you've been married for 20 plus years, then there's a level of experience that you've had, you know, really in so many things. Like when you're married, then, you know, you have to, there's a level of compromise. There is negotiation, there's discussion. But it really pushes you into corners. I mean, it's not easy to have to maintain that commitment. You know, there's so many ways that there's so many times I think that any of us could just choose to just give up. And when we don't, that is, you know, that means something, that says something. But why don't we? You know, what is it about it? And I don't know, like all of us have our own reasons, I'm sure. But to be in a relationship with somebody for 20 or more years requires a specific level of value system that somebody would have.
Okay.
I yield on the marriage part of it. I mean, I feel like so I apologize. I can't find my other paper from the other meeting. I need to start collecting the stuff in one place. Maybe it's in this bag. Hold on.
Are you ready for opinion number 2?
Yes, go ahead. Oh, and I did find my paper, so continue.
Opinion number 2 is, I think that as the prudent man standard, that we have a certain amount of standards is good. I think the harshness of the qualifications of saying you have to be married 20 years when there are certain things that we can have understood without putting it in writing or offending someone.
I think when you're saying soften, I mean, we're not announcing this out to the whole world, but I think as a group of people who are already in this, I think we should amongst ourselves have a standard that we know that we're considering. I don't know. I guess it's not supposed to be a secret or per se, but you know, there's a vetting committee, for example, that we have in the assembly. The qualifications for the committee members is something for us to know, being on the committee, being handpicked for this inaugural position. I say inaugural, that's probably the wrong word, but like we're the first, well, as we build this thing, right? And as we retire out and we bring in the next generation or whatever, I think that they're the only people who would ever really know that this is our vetting standard. That's what we should call it, vetting standards. The vetting standards. So I hope that makes sense. And I think that if you're already on the committee, then you wouldn't be offended by the vetting standard because you met the standard.
I agree to the words of high vetting standards.
Ma'am.
Yes.
I don't think we need to write any of it down in that sense because it's not a perfect criteria. We just know what the standard should be, and we're the ones that are going to be bringing people in. So it doesn't need to be something that is listed like must meet, must meet, must meet. It is just a criteria to me that they should be close enough to, and then if for knowing the person or vouching for them or whatever you want to call it.
Agreed.
Solomon,
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
do you agree?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Dominic, do you agree?
So I'm multitasking and I just had to deal with a conversation, so I'm not really up to speed. So I'll let you guys make the decision right now.
Okay, so it's a rule of measure. And then let's say that if we're going to do some kind of vouching, that we should have known the person at least 7 or more years. What do you say? I think we should have number 5 as a vetting committee.
All right, so may I?
Oh, 6. Yeah, I'm listening.
So what you have to be careful here,
Mm-hmm.
there is a congressional committee that vets candidates for the congressional office.
Oh, it happens on the congressional part. Okay.
Right, but that's for candidates for the congressional office in the Continental Congress.
Mm-hmm.
The vetting, let me see.
Oh, I see. Okay, so the actual 2 committees, y'all, one is international security and education, and the other is congressional.
Yeah,
committee.
so they'll also vet candidates for the United States congressional delegation, will receive nominations, publish election notices, conduct elections for the office, provide ballots, and secure and announce the election results.
Right. Okay.
What we need to check into is the vetting committee of the General Assembly. So the people joining this committee may need to be vetted through that committee. So
Really? Because aren't they
do,
vetting people for? They're vetting people. They wouldn't have our vetting standards.
So remember the 3-legged stool.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that this committee does actually has to be approved by the General Assembly. Okay. So the General Assembly is vetting the people really for the different roles, although in the description of the International Business Standing Committee, this committee is vetting the candidates for the congressional office along with the congressional delegations. That's where this committee would be doing their vetting. So my suggestion is, let's do a little research to make sure before we jump to a conclusion. Because again, like I said, everything is you guys can do whatever you want in this committee, but it still has to go through the General Assembly. And it's the General Assembly that makes the final decisions. That's where all the decisions are made, because that's where the people are.
All right. This is the part I'll write, and I'm still going to write it, and I'll write it the way that I'm talking about, the way that we've discussed it, because all of the stuff that we're writing anyway is going to Anna.
Right. And that's good.
So then she'll just say, no, you can't do that because it should go wherever else.
Yeah. And that's good. We've got that avenue to be able to leverage.
Right.
You're not going to get anybody better than that. So I agree. I just wanted to bring that to your attention though.
This is the General Assembly meeting for the North Carolina Assembly, May 7th, 2024. Up the International Business Committee, Neethi.
Hello, everybody. Okay, so I have a lot to report today because I'm excited that I can share a bunch of stuff. So we've been studying. I'm still also working with Anna, working on the book, learning a lot. This pillar is unique in the sense that I actually put a little thing together. Let me just follow my notes here. I apologize. So as far as the international business pillar goes, we meet every other Monday at noon. We just met yesterday. We're still working on a lot of guidance from Anna about this pillar, and a lot of it especially like the congressional side has, that's still going to be kind of down the line. However, we've gotten a lot of things done, and there's a lot more I can share with you now. But in the case of the International Business Pillar, it's a little bit different. We're interviewing and bringing people onto this pillar who have specific talents and special interests in the work that we're doing here, because our assembly members are state citizens, and they also need to meet the following criteria. So we're seeking people who are business owners or individuals with 30 or plus years experience in management, preferably in the fields of environmental or working in creation industries. Seeking someone who's been married 20 plus years, has children, family, or similar experience. Someone open to studying the various forms of ancient law required to operate in commerce. And this position requires experience such as enforcing contracts in business, creating standards, operating as fiduciaries on behalf of the North Carolinians, being prepared to publicly announce your position in the assembly. This is not like, if you're one of those people that really wants to operate in the private, this is not the pillar that you want to work on. Dominic is our commander-in-chief right now.
First of all, Dominic is not the commander-in-chief. He is our coordinator. Did I understand you correctly to say that you were taking applications for these positions?
I was trying to share what we've done. And yeah, we have standards for this pillar. And so, yes, we're interviewing people who are interested in it because there's some qualifications that are required for it.
So I object to that, because all you are required to be on that committee is to be a citizen, and vetting is not, and interviewing and taking applications is not part of your international business pillar.
I'm just following Anna's guidance, so I will just ask her about that and let her tell us and continue to guide us, because we're writing our book with her. So I've been doing what I'm doing under her guidance. And with that, I didn't just make this stuff up by myself.
I'm going to kind of follow suit with Gwen on this. I guess objection is the right phrase. I guess my question to add to what she asked is, where are these requirements defined? Who defined them, and where did they come from?
Anna and I are working on the International Business Assembly Handbook, and so it's not out yet. We're not done to pass it around.
I haven't talked to Anna, and I don't know, but I have listened to her say numerous times that we as an assembly do not vet for any position. And I do understand the importance maybe of having people that are that have a little bit of background, but for the same reasons they would be desirable, it may be just as undesirable that they are so in-depth associated and experienced with a de facto history that they may not bring as much offering as one might expect. So it's kind of a double-edged sword trying to single them out that way. I'm concerned that, I don't know, I don't want to sit and listen to Anna and I are working on this indefinitely while things proceed down this path. I would like a firm answer to it so that it stops, or that we get clarification pretty much promptly. I yield.
Robert, do you think that when there's people who work on the IT committee that they should not have any IT training?
Nefi, this is not about any one person and what any one person thinks. It's not about what you think or what I think. It's about what people are motivated to do for the good of a whole assembly.
I see Robert McKenzie's also saying something about trusting de facto educated people, but that would be everybody here. The other part of that is I've actually been outside of the de facto working for the last 15 years. I actually stood up against them and never have been working with them for the last 16 years. But I think that when you want someone to do a position like, I'll say treasurer maybe, or like I said, again, like the IT position, or when you are operating in international business negotiations, then someone should have experience doing something like that. Wouldn't you want someone competent to be doing those things on behalf of the state?
I'm going to answer that with this. This is not a personal attack on you and what you have done with or without the de facto system. This is about what's right for the assembly, what's in accordance to our guidelines, if you will. I don't know. I know that there's no way in this world that anybody in their right mind would put a requirement of being married for 30 years to be a part of an international business group. That makes no sense. And I'm sure that I stand up and would stand right beside Anna and go, that is, I don't know, that's one of those look up her skirt for heaven or whatever it is she says kind of things. I just don't get that. And to be whatever it was you said with 20 years experience of this and that, there are many people in this assembly that are without professional degrees or educated degrees, okay? And they are just as smart, just as common sense, just as aware of contract negotiations and what contracts are about as perhaps people with degrees in those specific things. And it is wrong for us to be forced anything other than that. To look at it and go, well, you need a resume that looks like this in order for you to come on board here. That is hogwash. That's hogwash. That is de facto thinking.
I didn't say anything about a degree. And we were seeking people with business experience because if you're operating in business on behalf of the state, then it would be good for you to have business experience. Also, you know what, Robert? I am not adamant or saying that this is just coming from me. We have a committee. There was a discussion and there are other people involved. So just because I'm the chairperson speaking on behalf of the entire committee, we are still operating as a committee. And I do take that as a personal attack, by the way, because it felt very much like everyone received what I was saying as if I was speaking like, like this is just something I just made up by myself. That wasn't actually what happened. But, as far as being qualified to be able to perform a task, this is the business of the government. And that would require people to have knowledge and experience to do the business. And so I don't know, like everyone here. No, because I'm not yielded yet. Thank you so much. But what I'm saying is that you would have to have some type of experience. That's just like, we're having, I guess it does. I mean, I don't know, like do whatever you want to do. It's y'all's assembly. So
would you like to speak up, please?
I could say, like, who's in charge?
Nathan, just because of protocol, I'm going to ask you to yield for just a few minutes while we have some people respond, okay?
So I just first want to say that there's always a way to say something. There's always a respectful way to say something. We can say something, we can disagree. That's absolutely fine. But I think that we still should always respect each other and how we're coming across. I don't think it's anything wrong with, if we needed to, go back to the drawing board and discuss it again. Should it take up this entire time on our business meeting right here? I don't know. But it's not that we have to complete it, it's sealed up with a bow completed right here and right now. We are grown men and women. We can discuss it. We can figure it out respectfully. So maybe that's something that we can bring back to our committee, discuss it, and then bring it back again. I just feel like everyone should just be careful on how we're speaking to each other, because we can't get further if everyone is feeling like a safe place and not disrespected. I yield.
Thank you, Lavelle. Anthony, you ready to speak?
Yeah, I'm ready to speak now. So I will say that it is not a personal attack. This is the assembly doing assembly business. And I will say that you're getting feedback. I'd suggest taking that feedback to your committee at this time, coming up with a game plan and coming up with notices to come back to the assembly so that the assembly can vote on options versus the feedback we're getting. And that's why we're an assembly. We operate in that public forum that people have options. They hear those options, they vote yay or nay, and then you go back. There's nothing wrong going back to the drawing board. I heard nothing but good stuff, but I will have to agree with Gwen and Robert. There are a couple things that kind of red flagged me at first for a minute.
So I just have a couple of additional comments. So you can have anybody in the committee that is a citizen and anybody that wants to join the committee, and then you see where people fit in, where their best capabilities are. In a committee, but anything that you do in the International Business Committee has to be approved by the General Assembly. You can't just go rogue and start doing whatever it is that you want as a committee. You have to bring that stuff to the General Assembly. And my second question, or my question is, Neethi, are you still a registered entity with the state of state in your food bank that would keep you from actually being a citizen or being able to be a citizen at this time?
Gwen, until our banks are up, then my business is set up because there's too many people's lives at stake that are earning money there, and Anna knows about that. She also knows that the dissolution papers are already set up. And the moment that we have a bank set up, then all of that would get filed. And she also said that people would put notices in because there are, like many of us, who are all working and volunteering right now. And we have to maintain whatever our income sources are until we are in a position to be able to move in another direction. So she knows that I can't do anything without my merchant account because I have to have the merchant account established until the banks are up. She also knows that I have a private everything set up with the GFG so that I can, literally the day that the banks are ready for us to be able to use them, I can shut all the other parts down. And there's many people like that actually that are involved, but I don't have any licenses. I don't operate with the de facto in any way, shape, or form. And I have not. And in fact, I've only ever pushed against them and stood against them for the last 16 years.
I know if you have any affiliation, you can't be a citizen at that time. But you said many have that. So there's more on the International Business Committee that have licenses and
I'm saying that we all have bank accounts, Gwen, and my nonprofit has a bank account that I can't close until we have other banks up. We're business owners. Anybody who has
I'm not talking about a bank account. I'm talking about a corporation.
That's tied to your merchant account. You cannot.
I'd like to step in again. I'm sorry, but we're going to have to move on from this. If you want to add this to the agenda for next meeting, if you want to continue this conversation. So when I hear from our coordinator, Dominic Battistella.
I kind of like this sitting back and just watching. It's quite enlightening. You guys did a pretty good job tonight. We've got the vetting committee. Nancy Goldstein has stepped up to organize that. She had a really productive meeting this past Friday. So I just want to take a minute to congratulate every single living man and woman who's on this call tonight. And I know there's a lot that weren't able to be here tonight for one reason or another. And for those that have doubts about what it is that we're doing, tonight's meeting was actually a pretty good meeting. I'll give you some things that I'd like to see us adjust a little bit. But this is the place where if any one of us hear something that maybe we don't agree with, or we have a question about, this is the place where we ask those questions. And I would agree with Lavelle's statement. We want to be careful how we talk with each other. We don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're coming down on people. But at the same time, there's sometimes going to be some emotion that comes in, conviction of where we, stand on certain things. But this is the place where it needs to be debated. And if we hear something about a committee, when the committee is reporting out, and we get a lot of pushback here on this committee, because remember, if you go back to the bubble chart that I started this meeting with, we got those three pillars. The General Assembly, the militia, the international business, those are the three legs of the stool. And it's the General Assembly, this group here, the people that are going to make the final decision. And so a committee, whether it's a subcommittee or the whole pillar, they could all agree within their committees. But if it doesn't pass muster in this group here, it's not going anywhere. We have to know and understand that. And our forefathers put together this kind of a government purposely so that not any one person, one living man or woman, or one small committee can take over and go rogue. It's got to pass through this whole committee. So because people ask questions, and we can't take it personal, but what we have to do is take it back to the committees and say, hey, you know what? We may have a rough time getting this through. What really is our role? What really is the way we should be developing our government? Should we be excluding people? Well, not really, not based on what we've been taught, right? I know me becoming a coordinator on North Carolina, especially for those that are new, it was because we did have a coordinator that wasn't allowing people into the assembly. And I'll tell you this, since I've been the coordinator, there has not been one living man or woman who has come forward with a desire to join the assembly have we refused to allow them in. And as Anna has taught us, everybody has the right to participate in their government. Nobody should be excluded. Now, they may do things that the assembly doesn't agree with, and the assembly, this group here, the General Assembly, has taken action on some people over the last year or two. But it went to the assembly. It wasn't one person. It wasn't one small committee. It went in front of the General Assembly and the people spoke. And when the people speak, we have to go along with what the people say. Now, if things change because of environment, circumstances, whatever it might be, well, you know what? It then goes back to the original committees. It's debated within those committees. The recommendations are brought up through that committee to that pillar and then back to the General Assembly. So nobody ever should feel that they can't speak, that their voice can't be heard, especially here where we've got the spokespeople, representing these committees to be able to ask the tough questions. And we should be able to answer those tough questions. So I think that dialogue was okay, how it went. Maybe some people were getting a little bit uptight, but no reason to. We work together to get through and resolve so that we can move things forward. Some good reporting out. Moving forward, though, Anithi was reporting out on her assembly, and she brought out some information that some of the folks, right on the spot, it didn't set well with them, and they had an opportunity to voice their concerns. And as I mentioned, some people sent in some notices. Now, somebody mentioned to me, well, why aren't they taking this to the Ombudsman's Committee? Well, the reason they're not taking it to the Ombudsman Committee because it's not an ombudsman's problem. These are assembly issues. In a report to the General Assembly, the issue came up and the discussion started. And so this is where these particular type of differences need to be discussed as a committee of the whole. And that's what the General Assembly Committee is. And so with it, we have a process.
May I? This is Gwen.
Yes, Gwen, go ahead.
Okay. So it was rather interesting that Anna put out an article. She that really laid it out pretty well for us, that a lot of the information that was being requested as requirements for the international business pillar are not acceptable or not allowed. So there are two things that you have to do in order to be on the international business pillar. One is correct your political status, and two is to be eligible to be a citizen. In order to be a citizen, you cannot have an allegiance to any state license or anything to do with them. I did a bunch of research and looked up a bunch of articles today in the last couple of days, and there are many articles where Anna talks about not being able to have an allegiance, a dual citizenship per se, to be a citizen. And so I guess the second part of what we brought up and talked about is being an owner of a corporation, and that causing dual citizenship, and it kicks you out of being able to be an American state citizen.
I know on last Tuesday I had said that this isn't a personal attack. I'm going to retract my statements and my words and apologize publicly to Niffy. And I felt that she was kind of publicly attacked. I don't feel it was fair to everybody to have that back and forth like we did, because it was supposed to be a nice business meeting and it turned into a debacle. On top of that, I ask going forward, before people start having objections, make sure you access all your resources before just jumping the gun. Make sure you have all your facts, make sure you watch all your meetings, make sure you do all your research, and then go properly going forward.
Neethy's name was used in the objection because she was a spokeswoman for the International Pillar and she was speaking for them. And we didn't go into the Business International Pillar and tell our objections. We did it on the Business Assembly meeting, the general meeting, because that's where you do the objections at. And Dominic had just explained that to us in his opening statements. And it's not a personal attack. This is business. And if you're going to be a spokesperson for a pillar, you're going to have to be able to understand and take the feedback that people give. And if they object to what you're doing, then you're going to need to be able to either rebut what they're saying or make changes within your pillar.
It sounds, and I don't mean to accuse you of this, but it sounds like you are trying to implement the same procedure that two individuals have where there's a conflict between two people and going to the ombudsman. In other words, not going to the ombudsman necessarily, but taking those other preliminary steps.
In the last meeting, it was mentioned that an application had to be filed, and if you did not have, if you're not married and not having children, I felt like that was being prejudiced towards me because I'm single. And also, I thought you had to be a ASC citizen in order to hold one of these positions, especially on the international business pillar. I just felt like that it was going against what Anna has written in certain articles that I have read in the past, even through her webinars. I don't know. Yeah, I just going to say that, with I object to the being prejudiced to people having to be married and having children. And then if you're looking to build a business off of the state, then I think that would be a conflict of interest. That right there, that to me, that just don't fly. I'm not attacking anybody in particular. I'm just saying anyone who holds any position on any pillar, on any committee, that should be the same across the board for everybody. I yield.
Thank you, Johnny. Lavelle?
Yes, I just wanted to say to Johnny, I don't fit that criteria, and I'm on the pillar. So it's not about that specific, and I think that's what was kind of misunderstood. It's like maybe some of the characteristics of maybe a person who have that criteria, maybe they stick with it, blah, blah, but obviously other people do who don't fit that criteria. And you have people like myself who is on the pillar. So it's not a prejudice against anyone because you can still be on it even though that criteria is there. So I just wanted to point that out, Johnny. I'm in that same category that I don't fit that, but I'm on it. I yield.
Thank you. Johnny, you got your hand back up?
I was going to refer to Lavelle. It was specifically brought up in the meeting last week that you had to be married and with kids, with children. I quote and end quote what was said. You could pull that meeting up and hear what was said.
Michael, I don't know why y'all are beating around the bush. Neethi, are you a citizen? And do you have articles of incorporation with the state?
Yeah, go ahead, Neethi.
I've been vetted by the Federation and by our assembly, like whoever the vetting committee is. I am.
So may I? It's Gwen.
Yeah, Gwen, go ahead.
So I can answer that question for you, Michael, because I have the articles of incorporation on my desktop. And yes, the food bank is incorporated. And I think that whoever vetted has missed that, and that we cannot, as an assembly, allow someone that's incorporated to hold a citizen position. That puts us all at huge jeopardy. And so I would so move that we would take a vote that we would either put the international business pillar on hold until Neethi dissolves her corporation like she talked about last week, or that we find somebody else that is able to stand as a citizen and is willing to stand as a spokesperson for that pillar. I yield.
Lavelle, may I?
Yes, Lavelle, go ahead.
Would that be personal information? Because I don't know if those records are accurate, if it's updated or not, or has it been dissolved?
Man,
Does Lavelle yield?
Yes, I yield.
Yeah, go ahead, Neethi.
I don't know what you're looking at, Gwen, but no one has ever asked me directly to provide any paperwork to you guys who are questioning. I have provided it. Everything that I needed to provide, I provided it for Dominic and the people doing the background check. I don't know what the food bank is, but it's not anything I have anything to do with. I yield.
Well, it's public information and I can share it if you would like. It's public.
I'd like to second Gwen's motion.
So the corporation name is Farm to Fork Meat Riot Corporation. Neethi is Rohit is the secretary, and I believe let me look at this one. Neethi is listed and signed as the incorporator.
Lavelle?
Yes, thank you. So for the ones who are like wanting to knock her off the pillar, who is willing to step up? Because it's easy to be on the couch and knock somebody off, but who's going to take that place? And then you all are saying that, oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, this is something that's further down the road. So why is it so important now? And why is it taking up, why are you all taking up so much of our time now if it's not important? If it can be on down the road, it's the last of the pillar that needs to be put up. And why is there an urgency now? I yield.
So may I?
Okay, go ahead, Gwen.
So Lavelle, it's not about knocking Neethi off the pillar. It's not about anything other than if we don't do this right, we can be overtaken by the de facto and we can be shut down and called an incomplete assembly. We can not be able to be seated. If we knowingly allow somebody that has dual citizenship to run a citizen, a pillar that requires it to be a citizen, then how are we doing anything different than the de facto government is doing that we are trying to be away from? This is an American government and we have rules, very simple rules, but you have to be a citizen to be able to be a chair or spokesperson elected and to be on the international business pillar. And if you can't meet that, you can't meet that. It's nothing personal. You have a choice to be a corporation or you have a choice to have a private business. But if you own a corporation, you're affiliated with the state of state, and that doesn't allow you to have a affiliation or allegiance to just North Carolina. I yield.
Gloria, may I?
Yeah, Gloria, go ahead.
Good afternoon. And just wanted to know, like Gwen just said, they're knowingly. Now, before you strike people down or whatever, you have to know their information, have anyone, and I know, Dominic, thank you for saying that this is not an ombudsman problem, but I just wanted to speak here to say that first, I think everyone should have talked to Neethi already and see what her business or whatever personally. I think not put it out like how it is now. I don't think it should be that way. But I mean, we're here now, but one-on-one, find out what her business is doing, what she's got, knowing everything that before you make accusations and things, and then go from there. That's just what I feel. But you have to know before you start saying these things or thinking these things. I yield.
So may I?
Okay. I've been listening for a long time and I haven't said anything. Also, nobody has asked me anything about my business or anything else. GOberg has absolutely no idea about what my relationship is with the state. But let me just enlighten everyone. So I have been going against the state for 15 years. I don't know if any of you are aware of this, but if you are working with regenerative family farms, not big ag, which is commodity, which is commercial, which is corporatocracy, then everything that we're doing is uninsurable because we are not raising soybeans or corn or GMO wheat or working for Bayer or working for Duke, okay? Or Monsanto, which is Bayer. Also, I have not taken 1 red cent of any grant money or any federal money or any donations from anybody who I did not personally know or any corporation ever. I don't have contracts like that. Everything I do is to serve individual families and only living men and women. And in fact, I interview everybody who I work with. It's a membership. And the reason that we have members is because I want them to know that we do not comply. We do not open ourselves up for inspection by the USDA, the FDA, the CDC, or anybody. And they've all come and tried. And I've told them over and over again that they're outside of their jurisdiction. And they have declared me a self-proclaimed governing body because I would not participate with anything that they do. I have no contract with them. These people don't know that. But to have a bank account, you have to have an EIN number. And that is just tied to, you know, the business that I established, which I can't get rid of the EIN number until after our banks are established. I have no contract with the state. Also, the Federation vetted me out because I'm doing the show with Anna. Do you think that they don't know everything about me? Anyway, I just want everyone to know that. And that's all. And also, I don't care if I stay the chair or I don't stay the chair. Ask Dominic. I told Dominic, let anybody else sit on this pillar. I don't know if all of you guys realize this or not, but if you are an American state citizen, you are on the International Business Committee, just like all of us. Anybody who, you come home and you come here to this meeting, you come here to the General Assembly because everybody is automatically part of the General Assembly. Well, in the same manner, everybody is part of the International Business Pillar if you're a citizen. So, disqualify me as a citizen if you want to. I don't care. It makes no difference to me. It changes nothing that I'm doing. And I have work to do, so I'm busy. I have no problem stepping aside. I told him that from the beginning. Because I just don't care about that. The only thing I'm doing is trying to help fill seats because we have so many empty seats. And you guys got so upset about some words you didn't understand and didn't allow us time to go back to committee to discuss that and bring it back to you. That's all that needed to happen. There's a lot of misunderstanding and miscommunication, and not one person asked for clarification, not one. And with that, I yield.
The words that Neethi raised last week were exact. They weren't off the cuff. They were precise. Tonight, she says something entirely different, and that it was us that took it wrong. We heard what we heard. The words came from Neethi. We did not mishear you. You misspoke. Perhaps you didn't know that you were misspeaking, but the words you used were against our rules of government. You were called out because of that. I don't have a problem with you being on the committee or being the chair, but I do have a problem. I do have a problem with not following the rules for one person if we're going to follow them. We did try and talk to you last week about these points, to which you said, well, Anna told me this, or Anna told me that. And we don't have the privilege of knowing what you and Anna have discussed. And Anna wasn't there to enlighten us. Well, she's enlightened us with a number of documents this week, which have clarified things, and that's all great. We know you're busy. A number of us are quite busy. I struggle sometimes with the same things that you struggle with. You get frustrated, I get frustrated. It has nothing to do with being frustrated. It has to do with following a certain path. And if we're going to follow the path, then we need to follow it. I don't know what your legal options are around being incorporated. I don't know that you can't be a sole proprietorship. I don't know, but it's not my job to investigate. We're simply taking what's dealt to us and responding. And I have a lot of compassion for the people in here who are struggling with what's going on because we have gotten to this development, this mental development in our thinking, all because of indoctrination. Well, we can follow this path, and then maybe if we sidestep this little issue, it's not such a big deal. But the next time we sidestep it, it might not be you, it might be somebody else. And that's what we're talking about. That's all. I get you're passionate about what you do, and you've got that 15 years of experience, and I appreciate that more than you know, and respect you for it. But it doesn't explain why we're varying from the path. That's all. I yield.
Gwen, you got your hand up?
Yes, I would like to address, Neethi, we did try to talk to you about it. And last week I asked you if you had a corporation, and you said that you had all your dissolution papers ready for as soon as the banks stand up. So I would assume that means, Josh, you do have a corporation, and I have the papers from the Secretary of State, North Carolina Secretary of State, where you filed for your corporation. So the answer is, if you're incorporated, if you make more than 10% of your income yearly from that corporation, then you have an affiliation, and it has nothing to do with an EIN number. You can get an EIN number, or you can open a bank account for a business without being incorporated. So I just want to make that clear. And we did ask you the question, and this is business, and we need to have answers to the questions, and that's just the way it works. So I yield with that.
My question is Neethi a citizen? And because I know state citizens are not supposed to be holding that position. The second question is, do you still have a business license with the de facto operating that farm to table or whatever it's called?
Yes, just an observation. It seemed like it's about 4 or 5 people that have an issue.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that there are more than 4 people here that have a problem with this. I yield.
This is the Assembly's business. This is the people's business. It's not for the Marshal at Arms to give her opinion. It's not for me to give my opinion. It's for the people to gather the information, because it's the people that make the final decisions. Any other comments?
May I say something, Dominic? This is Corey.
Yes, Corey, go ahead.
I just want to clarify that I made it clear at the beginning of my objection and at the end that I was peaceably objecting. I in no way, shape, or form attacked Neethi's character, but some here tonight are making it out to be an attack. And those who have done that have brought more attention to Neethi than the rest of us objecting. Because I was just objecting to what was said, nothing else. I didn't misunderstand it. I could have listened to it 1,000 times and heard the same thing. That's it. I don't want anybody to get in trouble here. And, you know, this unification that you guys are talking about, that we wouldn't get in trouble if we were unified. Look at the Trump supporters. They were unified. The de facto still attacked them. There's still people in jail. So it could happen. So again, I'm just objecting to what was said, not her character. Just want to make that clear. I yield.
Thank you, Corey. Any other questions? Any other comments? So there's a couple of things that we can do. That committee, the International Business Committee, has not met since last week. There were a number of things that people heard. And I believe that with Anna's article that came out, a simple course correction can resolve a lot of those things. There's one little piece, and this actually comes from a quote from Anna in a conversation. She says, if you can honestly say that you have no allegiance to any foreign government, you are acting in good faith. But if your livelihood depends on foreign corporations, it creates a conflict of interest. That's the rub. And that's the rub that we're dealing with here. So one possible recommendation could be that we can allow that committee, the International Business Committee, to meet. They meet, I believe, next Monday. Let them meet. Let them, as a committee, take the information that they have. They have this quote that I just read. And I'm sure that they'll make the right decision. I think we can allow them to take that time, if you agree with that. If there's people on the assembly here right now that feel that it needs to be dealt with right this second, you make the motion and then the people will decide. Because you are the people. I don't even have a vote in it. I don't have a say in it. The Marshal at Arms doesn't have a say in it. Our ombudsman doesn't have a say in it. We stay out of these types of situations. We facilitate. You people, being the people, the General Assembly, you make the decision. Neethi, you got your hand up?
I have a question for, I don't know if it's for Gwen or who said this. Somebody said this. Somebody said the EIN number has nothing to do with the corporation. Who said that? Or the way that the business is incorporated?
No, I said you can get a bank account without being incorporated with an EIN number, or that's what I meant, if I didn't say it exactly like that.
Well, because it's tied to my merchant account. And the reason I'm asking this question is because if it doesn't, I did this a long time ago, so I don't remember. But if I can go ahead and put in my dissolution for the nonprofit, which isn't even recognized by the IRS anymore because we noticed the IRS. And when we did that, all of that dissolved anyway on the IRS side of it. But if it's not going to affect my EIN, which I need to maintain for the merchant account, then I could just file the dissolution for the actual, I mean, like just with the registrar's office, which has nothing to do with, because I don't use, like most people incorporate, you guys, because they need some protection or whatever. I did the only reason I did the nonprofit was because I couldn't speak about, nutrition and the things that I needed to talk about. I didn't do it for any of the financial stuff. I didn't do it for contracting with the state of state in any other way. I didn't do it to take any money from these people because I have never done that. So, and I didn't do it for grants and all the other reasons that people file for nonprofit. I didn't do any of those things. I did it specifically because if you talk about natural healing or using food as medicine or whatever, you can't do it you open yourself up for litigious threat. But now that we've come home and we've done all these other things, and I mean, I know way more than I did when I very first started many years ago. So if that doesn't affect the EIN, like if I don't have to give that EIN number up for that, I already operate in the private anyway. Like the way that I run everything is private. I don't do anything where I'm associated with anybody. I don't have any licenses. I never have. I haven't had to have any of those things. So I'm not contracted with them in any other way. Everybody in the food church knows that already. So they know that we don't comply. They know we don't allow inspection. We don't have, I mean, even the fire marshal doesn't come in my building. So I'm trying to figure out if that's the only thing I could do that. That's not like a problem. Does anybody here have any facts on that?
Yeah,
Yes.
you can file an 8822B and you change your location and your everything. I think you can take it out of a corporation in that way.
No, I dissolved the corporation, Gwen. I don't need to do
Right,
that.
that's what I mean, but I mean that's how you change your EIN number, ownership and whatnot. So you could use the same.
Well, my
EIN
EIN
number.
is tied to my social. It's just it's kind of
what,
separate.
Was it your question how you could use an EIN in a private business? Was that your question?
No, what I'm saying is I don't want to lose the current EIN that I have.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You'd use a form 8822B because the North Carolina Assembly has an EIN number and we are not incorporated.
Right. I got my EIN number, but what I'm wanting to know is if I dissolve the corporation, do I lose my EIN? Like, how does that affect the EIN?
I was going to say, if you have an EIN and it's attached to any kind of business account where the account is not in your name, it's in the business name itself. The minute you dissolve that EIN with the state, you're going to lose that account because most banks won't allow you to keep it active.
Right. I wouldn't dissolve the EIN. I'm asking about the actual incorporated name.
I believe that you use the form 8822B and you would just change the information on it and you would be able to keep your EIN number that you have right now. But I just pulled one for the assembly and there's a 800 number. I could probably give it to you right now. You can call and ask them questions and you can ask them that question.
Mm-hmm. Because that EIN number is tied to my merchant account, which I cannot. I mean, that's my bank account. I'm not going to let that go. But that has nothing to do with. I don't need the incorporation status or whatever for any reason whatsoever. I have never leaned on it. I used to use it for tax things, but then we've already noticed the IRS, so we're already free from them. And I work with living men and women farmers. I don't work with corporations, so I don't have any reason to need it for that either. Anyway, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to do anything to harm our assembly, and I never would do anything to harm anyone. So with that, I yield.
Do you want me to send you the 800 number?
Sure.
Okay. So the only thing that we have left is Neethi a corporation, and does that make her conflict of interest? And if she's going to dissolve it, then I guess that's probably pretty much resolved as well. So would we want to say there's a timeline or what? And then I guess what I was gonna say is, can we move the vote till next week when we can get an update and people have time to study and whatnot? But I don't even know if that's necessary at this point in time. So I yield.
Thank you, Gwen. Corey, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one last thing. We've been in this position, this mess for 160 years because nobody objected. And I'm reading the comments here, and I see a lot of people in their feelings. Get out of your feelings, okay? Because this is important stuff. And if it wasn't for these objections, then we wouldn't be right here right now where it looks like we're solving the issue.
Ma'am?
And with that, I yield.
Thank you, Corey. Hold on, Nikki. Neva's got her hand up, and then we can take it back.
Well, I had it up. I was just taking it down because it seems like Gwen has provided the information. I have an unincorporated business with an EIN. So it's just moving out of corporate status into unincorporated status. And it seems that you could probably talk to them about a way to keep your same EIN. And the bank account the bank shouldn't have a problem with that. It's going to be some paperwork, and it sounds like Gwen has got that nailed down. So that's great. It seems like it would be a fairly straightforward thing that won't interrupt the great work that you're doing. And I don't think anybody questions, I certainly don't, your motives, the work you do, your dedication, and your intentions. So if there's an easy solution, I think that it would be wonderful, and you'd probably feel better about it too. I yield.
Tonight was definitely a learning experience for everybody on the assembly. When issues are needing to be raised, they need to be raised. And you got to take the approach. It's not personal, and we should never make it personal. It's business. We need to move the ball forward. We need to make sure we cross our T's. We need to make sure we dot our I's. We're all learning. We are all living men and women, and we're going to make mistakes. We talk about this often. And so when we make mistakes, we have this discussion, we course correct, and then we start moving the ball forward again. So what I'm taking away from tonight as our follow-up is the International Business Pillar Committee. They're going to meet. They're going to work on course correcting based on the things that were said. They're going to bring clarity to it. They've got Anna's most recent article that is pretty darn clear on the expectation, not only for that pillar and committees, but every single other pillar and committee that we have. We don't hand select, although I'm the biggest guilty party because as I get to meet every single member of our committee and I start to see different talents and I know where all these little slots are that need to be filled. So I make recommendations and I encourage people to get involved. And I encourage every single spokesperson, living man, living woman.
I asked Anna about what everybody is calling hand picking, like even you, Dominic. And when we have empty seats anywhere across anybody's, committees or any of these pillars, and then somebody who isn't on a seat, who has talent and could contribute, and you ask them, hey guys, listen, we need to shoe some horses over here, we need to shoe some horses, and I heard you know how to do that. So qualifying somebody in that regard isn't against anything. She even says, you can, there's nothing wrong with headhunting and asking for help if you see someone with talent for a position that you need to fill. So I think that's what we were doing. At least that's what me and Dominic were doing, because nobody was just volunteering. I think a lot of people were not volunteering for things because most of this stuff sounds really intimidating when you're brand new. So I just want to put that out there for anybody who's wondering if they're going to do a good job, or anyone who has a committee who needs people. So.